Why have brands like Prada, Dior, Fendi, Nars, and Charlotte Tilbury created 3D immersive stores to engage with their online shoppers? Simply put, money, money, money. 3D immersive environments have proven to provide new values for brands and consumers, specifically a 109% higher session duration, 106% increase in pages per session, and a whopping 35% uptick in average order value. As I said, money, money, money.
80% of consumers in the US identify themselves as gamers. In Gen Z, that's 90%. The audience is used to being in very visual, very interactive, immersive experiences, and that's starting to become their expectation for all digital experiences, and shopping is one of them.
Neha Singh is a visionary who comes from Google and Vogue and is now revolutionizing the fashion industry. Ms. Singh's company, Obsess, builds gorgeous worlds where fans can dream and explore, learn, and of course, shop. Indeed, this is retail's future. And Ms. Singh is also leveraging Roblox. In the event a brand wishes to unlock the platform's 70 million young daily consumers who spend more than 2.5 hours a day exploring.
I ultimately believe that all of our online interactions will be in much more immersive, 3D, spatial. That's the fundamental reason, is the consumer is evolving.
Ms. Singh's vision is impressive, and it's not just my opinion. To date, Obsess has partnered with the world's leading brands and retailers to create more than 350 AI-powered virtual stores and experiences. And of course, I would be remiss if I failed to mention that even megastar Taylor Swift was activated within Obsess's ecosystem. Neha, it's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you and understanding your ambitious growth strategy. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Some Future Day. Neha, good afternoon. It's great to see you. Welcome to Some Future Day.
Great to see you too, Mark. Thanks so much for having me.
Neha, you really are the perfect guest for Some Future Day because you truly exist at this intersection of technology and culture. I love your background. It's so impressive. Let's just start there. Talk a little bit about what you did at Google and what you did at Vogue.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a computer scientist by training, got my graduate degree in computer science from MIT, and then I was a software engineer and tech lead at Google for 5 years. While I was there, though, I thought that I wanted to be a fashion designer because I love fashion. So I started taking fashion design classes at FIT on the side. However, realized after a couple of semesters that I was really bad at drawing. So then I decided to stick to the tech side of fashion, which was more my sweet spot. And I joined a startup that was a luxury e-commerce marketplace where I led engineering and product. And really, what I learned there was that I really wanted to create an e-commerce experience that was different and not just the grid of thumbnails on a white background that you see on every website, but that's pretty much what all the platforms gave you to work with. So it was very difficult to create something that was, truly unique in e-commerce. That was my learning from there. And after that, I was the head of product at Vogue for 4 years, where I launched all of their digital properties, including Vogue.com, Vogue Runway, their mobile apps, and of course, worked with many luxury brands who were our advertisers in the magazine to create interactive digital ad experiences for them.
So it's interesting. I remember when Vogue went through that transition, it was almost from an outsider's perspective as if the technology piece of it was not the priority. In many ways, I thought my friends that were working at Vogue on the tech side, even social media at the time, were an afterthought. And yet they grew to be some of the biggest and brightest minds in the industry today. Some of them have even moved over into the tech space, like Ava Chen, for example. She's, completely formidable, if not the most, in the social media vertical with Instagram now. What was it like culturally at Vogue during that time period? Here you are coming in through the lens of, I love fashion, I'm an FIT dropout, but I know how we could impact Vogue media and the fashion community, but what was the culture like? What was Anna Wintour's perspective on technology at that point in time?
Yeah, I mean, for me as a tech geek person, it was like Disneyland as a tech geek person who loves fashion. But yeah, for us in the digital team and for Vogue.com, we were quite independent. We sat separately from the print magazine on a different floor, and we had a lot of autonomy in how we operated. So everything was sort of like built from the ground up in terms of the entire team, the staff, the writers, editors for the .com versus the magazine. And we did hire our own tech team, engineering, product design, and so on. We also worked with external agencies as well. But yeah, what we really try, I would say in terms of the culture, it was very much focused on winning in the fashion media space, which, yes, while it was a little bit sort of a late entry, I would say, Vogue was still the biggest name, so we had a huge opportunity, and we were able to prove that out within a couple of years from relaunching the site. And for us, like the most important thing was that we didn't want to just do things the same way that every other media site did. Like even for our advertising formats, we didn't just want to have like those banners and boxes that you see on every media site. We actually created like really rich native, advertising formats for brands, and really tried to make the online experience as rich as the print experience. So it was an amazing team. In fact, I work with some of them now in my company, Obsess. And we moved really fast, and we were able to really kind of grow the online audience at a massive scale very quickly.
So I'm interested in hearing more because it sounds to me if there was like total separation between the digital side of Vogue and the physical side of Vogue, how could it culturally penetrate into the ether of the fashion world? Like, did Anna Wintour actually oversee the work that you were doing on the digital side?
Yeah, so on the editorial side, definitely she did. I think every week they had meetings with her. From my perspective, from the product and tech side, it was more when we had big kind of redesigns, relaunches, and all of those. And she looked at kind of all of the new site design stuff and gave her feedback. And yeah, so I was obviously more on the tech side of it. I'm
Sure,
sure
I get it.
there's
But you were
yeah
integrated into the
yeah
community anyway. Like I
yes.
remember you had mentioned to me recently that you told me a fun story that you were invited to the Met Ball Gala and went for your first time. What was that experience like? And actually, why don't you back up, tell everybody what the Met Ball Gala is, and then talk about that experience.
Sure. First, my first Monday of every May is the Met Gala at the Met Museum in New York, which is the opening of the new exhibition, the fashion exhibition at the Met every year, and it is hosted by Vogue. It's an incredible event with all celebrities from every different sort of like field, I would say, coming together. Yeah, for me, of course, it was absolutely incredible to be able to attend. And we also had created this brand new technology that basically we wanted to beat the New York Times in getting the red carpet photos up on Vogue.com before New York Times gets the photos up on NYT.com. And yeah, so we were kind of like testing that out, but also just, yeah, getting to see, these icons from fashion designers to sports to movies to music all in one place. Yeah, truly like a dream, I would say.
So then you moved on to build this incredible platform named Obsess. How did you intellectually make that leap and say, I'm going to become an entrepreneur, I'm going to take a risk, and how did you develop the business model? What is Obsess?
Yeah, maybe I'll start by saying what Obsess is. So we are a virtual experience platform. We create 3D, immersive, interactive online shopping experiences for brands and retailers. Our thesis is that online shopping has fundamentally not changed in terms of how it looks for 25, 30 years now when it was first created to sell books by Amazon. And the same interface that we used to use then, which is a grid of thumbnails on a white background, is still used today for everything from fashion, beauty, home, furniture. It's all the same. So I believe that the future of brands and future of online shopping will be much more visual, will be much more interactive and immersive, and we are bringing that technology into the e-commerce world. In terms of like how I decided to become an entrepreneur, that was definitely a big leap, but it's also something that I knew I wanted to do for a while, like having worked at Google in sort of the early days of tech, these big tech companies achieving so much and growing so fast. Like I was always inspired by that. I always wanted to create something myself and build a product myself. But I wanted to find the right idea. I didn't want to just do it for the sake of like entrepreneurship. I wanted to do something that I was really passionate about. And this idea came to me through many years because, as I mentioned, when I worked at the startup, I really came across this problem of all the e-com platforms giving you these templates, very difficult to move off of them without a lot of budget and without like hiring, a lot of engineers. So no wonder like every brand has the same e-commerce, look and feel. And then at Vogue, talking to so many of the brands we worked with, I saw how much investment they were putting into their physical touch points with customers, like beautiful stores and, amazing fashion shows and events. But then digitally, it just wasn't, their experiences didn't have the same level of creativity. They felt very mundane. And that's because they didn't have the tools to actually express that online. So that's how I really kind of came up with the idea and saw the opportunity as more commerce moves online, that inevitably brands are going to have to learn to form that connection with the customer in a richer way, which today they were very used to doing physically.
I see.
So that's how this concept came about. In terms of the business model, I would say I didn't have it figured out when I started. It was definitely several years of iteration and trying out lots of things to figure out what we ultimately landed on now.
Yeah, that's interesting. So technically, which year, like in what year did you turn on the business lights? When did Obsess legally launch?
Legally, I incorporated in 2016, but we didn't launch till our first kind of customer facing experience launched in 2017. And for the first few, like 2 to 3 years, I would say, this was the era of the first virtual reality hype cycle. So this was like after, Meta or Facebook at that time had just acquired Oculus for over $2 billion. So there was a lot of like hype in the market, and there were predictions that there would be 100 million headsets in the market by 2018. That didn't happen. So in the first kind of phase, we were actually building for some of the early first generation virtual reality headsets, including Google Daydream and Samsung Gear VR and, the first generation Oculus. But it was too early for all that. But that was the business in the first like couple of years. And then we moved to our web-based and mobile-focused platform and started gaining more traction.
So in 2017, you officially launched. And since then, how many brands have activated in these 3D? How many brands has Obsess activated in these 3D immersive experiences?
Yeah, since then, over 100 brands, and we have created over 350 virtual experiences.
Which brands specifically in like fashion and beauty has Obsess launched?
Yeah, a lot of brands. So we work with J. Crew, Ralph Lauren, Alo Yoga, Dior, L'Oreal, Elf Cosmetics, Maybelline. We also work with brands outside of fashion and beauty now, including like furniture, Crate and Barrel, Dyson. We work with media and entertainment companies like Disney, Universal Music Group. We launched with Taylor Swift at the end of last year, which was our highest traffic ever to a virtual store. So yeah, lots of different, also CPG companies as well.
So why is it so important for brands in the future to, or now, really, I guess the future is now, right? You've been at this now for a long time, almost a decade. So in your estimation, I like how you positioned it earlier, by the way. You kind of discounted the fact that we're stale, we're old. We've been in the same format that Jeff Bezos came out to sell like lousy books with a million years ago, right? But why, other than the aesthetics, like why is it important for brands to have these 3D immersive environments for their consumers?
Yeah, so today, 80% of consumers in the US identify themselves as gamers. In Gen Z, that's 90%. So, the audience is used to being in very visual, very interactive, immersive, experiences. And that's starting to become their expectation for all digital experiences. And shopping is one of them. I ultimately believe that all of our online interactions will be in much more immersive 3D, spatial, whatever term you want to use, kind of context. But um, that's kind of the fundamental reason is the consumer is evolving. But the second is that today's, that kind of very flat database like interface, it's great for one type of shopping, which is when you know exactly what you want to purchase. So it's good for directed shopping. You can search, filter, get to the thing. But in terms of discovery of, learning about the brand, discovery of products, typically you're doing that in a retail store today, or you're doing it on social media platforms, right? But you're not usually going to a brand's website for discovery, and that's a huge disconnect and an opportunity because, again, this younger generation, they want to do that online, not just in a retail store. So that's why it's important for brands to kind of create these experiences and represent their brand in a way that's more visual, more interactive, that really pulls the customer into their world. Because today, like, you don't, if you never interacted with a brand in a retail store, like, what do you even know, like, what the brand stands for? It's very flat, it's very static, it's very difficult to differentiate between brands. So I think it's really for kind of the long term brand building, and reaching a younger generation.
Yeah. So is it expensive then for these brands? I know you said you really scaled this thing up, but is it expensive for brands to build these 3D immersive environments?
No, because we are essentially a SaaS platform. So as our software gets kind of reused across all of these different experiences, we are not, while the design is always custom for the brand, the tech capabilities are reused, and that's why it's a more scalable model, and it's much cheaper than, let's say, designing something like very custom and creating, building it out all from scratch. So it's quite reasonable in the scheme of marketing campaign budgets for these brands.
Yeah, I see. That's interesting. So beyond this, like what you're talking about is like you go into an environment, I see the product in a way that's three-dimensional from the top, from the sides, from the bottom, from the inside to the exterior. The storytelling is richer. It's a lot better than what's happening with regards to web, let's say web two or the typical digital web experience if I'm interacting with a luxury brand or a contemporary designer brand. But what also is beneficial to the brands as it relates to transacting business specifically? Like, can I purchase the product in one of these immersive environments? Does the product look exactly like it would look in store?
Yes. So yeah, definitely you can purchase the products through these environments. Like, we have full e-commerce integration, so you can see all of the details of the product. You can actually add the product to your cart, and build your cart as you go through the virtual store. So yeah, it is. While you can use it purely for, let's say, a brand awareness objective, and that's what some of our customers do, but ultimately for most customers, there is a tie-in to the actual purchase right from within this experience as well. And yeah, I would say, for these brands, they can, beyond the purchase though, there is a lot of additional storytelling that they can unlock through different mechanisms, including gamification, avatars, and we can talk about all of that. And then the other point I would make is that it's not just about like being able to see a product from all three dimensions and seeing it from all sides. That's definitely one part of it. But for us, it's about immersing the customer in the brand's world. So, for example, like, we worked with J. Crew, and they created a summer beach house that's like in the Hamptons, and you can go through different rooms of the house, and you can actually look at their. It was their 40th anniversary last year, so you can look at their catalog covers from 40 years and learn about the trends through the different decades. and you can play this game. And if you, complete the game, you get access to the secret lighthouse. So yes, the products are, all throughout this experience, but it's about so much more than that. And it's really about immersing the customer in a full, 3D visual environment, similar to a AAA game, but essentially, fully photorealistic, completely designed to how the brand wants. And then the brand can, change it. So that was the summer experience. And then for winter, J. Crew created a ski chalet, and it's this beautiful, like you land on in this like snowy mountain, and you go on this jeep, and there's like a men's chalet and a women's chalet, and there's like fire burning and crackling, and there's spatial audio. So it's like, yeah, it's a whole experience, and the products are a part of it, but that's really what immerses customers and makes everything more memorable.
So it's interesting when you mention memorability. I recently read a Stanford study that showed immersive environments increase memorability for the participants by as much as 75 to 80% versus a brand speaking at that consumer or a consumer reading an ad campaign in a magazine or something. So that's really very interesting to me. That definitely moves the needle and creates value from a marketing perspective. But let's talk about staying on focused on the value to the brand itself. Let's talk about how long these consumers then spend in these immersive environments. Like right now, I know from my agency's perspective, it's great if we could get some of the fans or a new consumer into a YouTube video. But I feel like what you're doing is far superior than a YouTube video. How long do consumers spend in these immersive environments? And then what other values from a marketing perspective specifically are brands having as a result of consumers spending time in these environments?
So yeah, in terms of time, typically, so these virtual experiences and virtual stores, they live as a page on today. They live as a page on the brand's e-commerce site. Of course, that page is super rich, and it could be an entire house or an entire chalet that you can go around. But essentially, people are spending 2 times the amount of time on that one page, which is the virtual experience, than on all the other pages of the e-commerce site combined. So that's kind of average across all of our customers. So yeah, it's like compared to going to a regular sort of landing page on the site, like it's just a totally different experience. In terms of other, and that also varies a lot, by the way. So in some particular categories like toys, we even have a customer where the time is 1000% higher on the virtual store page versus on the rest of the e-com site. And then, yeah, and to your question of other kind of marketing values that the brand is seeing. So the first would be, beyond spending time, we also want people to interact. So we look at interaction rates. And those are typically in the 80% range, which is very high. And so, and the number of interactions varies a lot by the experience, because it also depends on how extensive the experience is. For example, if it's 1 room versus 5 rooms, and I'm saying rooms, but it could be any sort of environment. But the more there is to do, the more people will do, essentially. And then, of course, we are also looking at are people coming back? And as a result of spending time in the virtual experience, are they also actually then coming back more to the e-com site or purchasing there more or spending time there more? So it's really kind of uplifting. And typically we do see that. So it's really uplifting the entire kind of digital presence. And then this last part, we don't have like data to verify in terms of are people then going more into retail stores as a result of having looked at a virtual experience, but in more of like a qualitative survey with with US kind of retailers and decision makers who have implemented virtual stores, they do say that they see an impact on retail traffic as well.
So Neha, how much money or what percentage of a CMO's budget should be allocated towards building out these digital spaces now?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say, it doesn't need to be a huge budget at this time, like, 1% or less just for building it. But then where it needs to go more is into marketing the experience too. So just because you build it doesn't mean people will come, like with anything else. So sometimes the challenge that we have is like, we'll be working with a particular, like, let's say the creative team at the brand, and we create this amazing experience, but then it's not really promoted on social or it's not promoted on the website. So people are not gonna like know that it exists. But the most successful experiences are those that brands are marketing on a cross-channel basis, and really thinking through the strategy of how they're going to promote it from to their existing customers through email and SMS, social media, of course, having a place for it on the site nav so people can find it. And we even have customers that promote it through QR codes, on product packaging sometimes on outdoor advertising. And the more you can kind of create these cross connections, ultimately we see better results. So in terms of budget, I would think about like, yeah, the build of the experience, but then more on the marketing.
So it's interesting. Let's say we have a CMO who's, fantastic at marketing. She's firing on all cylinders across owned, earned, and paid media. She's built this incredible immersive environment for the brand, and the product is just like sparkling and shining and totally luxurious. Another area of friction might be consumers, and you know how they are. Sometimes they're scared of new technology. Maybe they think it would be complicated to get into that new environment, into that new space. So, how seamless is it for a consumer that's never done any of this before, that might be a little intimidated? How does she get into it?
So, yeah, first of all, like the one thing we have seen from our data is that in the marketing assets that lead up to this experience, you should be very clear as to what it is and how to navigate through it. Because sometimes, if a brand just puts up like a static image of the virtual store on social media, or even sometimes of just the campaign or a product, and then you suddenly land in this experience and it's totally different from what you expected, that people bounce, right? So what we do is, and actually our platform generates these sort of like fly through videos, basically. So you can get a sense like, okay, this is actually a space that I'm supposed to navigate through. And if that is the asset through which you are driving traffic, it just has much better results in terms of people understanding how to use it. Of course, once they get there, we have, instructions and all of that. But overall, it's intuitive to many people, again, because of that gaming aspect. Like the interaction is actually very similar to how you navigate through a game. And even like to some of the, luxury brands that we work with that typically might have an older audience, they have done really well too, because they create virtual experiences that are more realistic. So trying to, emulate their retail stores, but now you can get that experience on your phone. And ultimately, you know how to move around a retail store. So it's pretty easy. And all of it, by the way, is just, you just click a link, it opens within Instagram in-app browser, in your email browser. So it's really, easy to access. And that's one of the main things that we work on, is like, how easy is it to access? How fast is it to load? Because we don't, if it's going to take like 10 seconds, people are just going to leave. So yeah, all of those are kind of aspects of the technology, but the marketing does matter in how you message people going into this experience.
So visually speaking, like let's say I jump into one of the immersive environments, I'd want it to be a better brand. Like, which is the most luxurious brand that you've built so far, would you say?
Oh, I mean, we have a lot, so it would be
Give
hard
me
to
give me
pick.
one.
Let's say Dior.
Okay, so I go into Dior and I want to dress head to toe in Dior when I'm in that environment. Can I wear digital assets from the current season's collection while I'm checking out the store?
Yeah, that is an option. So we have options for avatar, like basically you browsing the experience and as an avatar. However,
I'm
it's not.
decked in Dior.
Yeah.
All right.
Uh, so yeah, you can customize your avatar's outfit, obviously the look and feel, and then you can kind of walk around very similar to a game through the experience. I would say right now, in terms of the technology, when the experience is with an avatar, it cannot look 100% photorealistic as we can make it look basically when it's non real time 3D. So We have some brands that use avatars, but a lot of them like don't use it yet because again, our experiences are web-based, super easy to access. So it just depends on the goal. If the goal is more like social, then brands actually use avatars because you can also actually invite your friends and shop together in these experiences, or they can have events and people can attend as their avatars. And then for brands where like the look and feel being very, very photorealistic is important. We are not there yet. I'm sure within the next couple of years, mobile GPUs will be powerful enough that we will be able to render like completely photorealistic real-time 3D.
That's pretty cool. That's really amazing. So, do brands like Dior sell the digital assets too, or is it just the physical assets that are available, the physical items that are available in the Dior shop?
Yeah, so our platform has the ability to do both, but so far, like pretty much all of our customers have used it to sell physical items only, except like we also create experiences for Roblox because that is also fundamentally a 3D platform, and there it is only digital items for your avatars at the moment. So yeah, if brands are interested in selling more digital versions of their and as you know, like the challenge with the digital versions of like say clothing today is like there is no one standard, like where would you wear it, because every platform
It's
has
an
its own.
interoperability
Yeah,
issue, right? Yeah, I
exactly, every
see.
platform
I
has their
see.
own system.
But what about the perceived value of a digital asset, right? Like, does our generation and older understand the importance of a digital asset, like someone that's a Gen Z or a Gen Alpha? Like, is that part of the problem there too? Is it only a matter of time? Like, I think I read recently that Walmart is launching digital wearables, digital assets, I think in Roblox with celebrities even, and they're ramping that business up. So is it just a matter of time until these digital wearables, these digital assets are available in these obsessed spaces?
Yeah, I think so. And I think in general too, because already like on Roblox, which is, purely digital assets, players are spending more than $1 billion a quarter on purchasing digital assets for their avatars, right? So to your first part of the question in terms of whether it will ever become as important to our generation as it is to Gen Z and Gen Alpha, that I don't know. But definitely for Gen Z and Gen Alpha, because they're spending so much time on these kind of large scale social platforms like Roblox and Fortnite, where what they wear on these platforms is almost as important as what they wear in real life. That's when the digital items become really important. So yeah, a lot of brands have entered like Roblox for that reason, and they're able to sell, but also get like just much more creative with their product, right? Because you're not restricted by making things in real life, and you can express the brand in all kinds of new ways.
But do those become real streams of revenue for brands in Roblox? And I know we're like veering off of Obsess for a second. I'll bring us right back there in a second. But like, can brands make money by selling digital wearables, digital assets in a Roblox setting?
I don't know if there's any like publicly available numbers that brands have shared in terms of how much overall they have made. There's certainly on Roblox, there's certainly, when Gucci launched, they were the first brand to really
Yeah,
enter
Gucci
Roblox.
Gardens, right?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
the
They had a lot of
famous,
problems with it too, right?
but the famous story from that is how like the digital version of the bag sold for more than the physical bag,
The
like
physical
retails
bag, yeah.
for. So yeah, so I think if it's going to get there, if it's not there already, where brands can make significant revenue, and also note that because it's digital only, their production costs are much lower, so overall it will be like more profitable.
So, which brands do you think are making a mistake by going into a public forum like Roblox? Like, I think that the idea of having a self contained, controlled environment built with Obsess is very important, especially for a luxury brand that doesn't want to give the keys to its intellectual property kingdom into the public, like a Roblox type of space. Am I right? Is that the value for brands to kind of plug this into their own platform versus going into like a third party environment like a Roblox?
I would say that both are important. So it's the same as having a presence on social media, but also having your own website, right? Like you need, so I really compare like gaming platforms now to social media because, first of all, like, 70 million daily active users spending an average of 2.6 hours a day on Roblox. So it's more than in some cases, the combined amount of time on all social media platforms. So it's important to have a presence there because of the audience and the massive audience and the reach you can have.
I agree.
But ultimately, the same reason why you want to have a D2C e-commerce is because you want to have a direct relationship with the customer. You want to get the data, and that you're not going to get that from Roblox. So Roblox is really great for the reach, brand awareness, the digital kind of product revenue at the moment, and then having an immersive experience. By the way, they can also mirror each other. We believe that brands shouldn't have to reinvent their kind of virtual identity on every platform. So once you basically know, like, this is what my virtual presence looks like it can be released on Roblox, it can be released on your site, it could be released on an Apple Vision Pro, it could be released on Fortnite in the future. So yeah, on your own side, the advantages are yes, you get to fully kind of control the look and feel, and it can be much more photorealistic, just higher kind of resolution than what Roblox offers today. But also, and more importantly, like you are still having that direct connection with the customer. You're getting the data from the customer, and that's really important. In addition to, of course, like the broad reach.
So the first party data thing I think is very interesting and really critical for marketers. Again, through the CMO lens, there are so many limitations in the pipeline right now that are going to stop third party data from being accessible to brands. So how is it that in this type of experience, marketers can access first party data?
You mean on immersive experiences on their
Correct.
website? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because essentially, like for us, like all the data that we are collecting is owned by the brand, and the experience lives as part of their website. So it lives on their domain, it's integrated into their e-commerce system and into their analytics system.
What kind of data do you capture?
So every interaction that the user does within the virtual experience. So if you are, going to a room, you're clicking on a product, you're watching a video, you're playing a game. So all of that is captured, and you can even visualize it on heat maps. So which section of the store is getting the most traffic? How much time are people spending? And because it's all digital, the beauty is that you can just drag and drop and change things around. So if there's a product you really want to promote, but people are not going to that section, you can move it forward, or you can add like a whole new section because it's all digital, doesn't cost you, there's no real estate costs. So yeah, the data, when we launch with a brand and can start getting the data is really the starting point, right? So yes, we may build this very beautiful, branded experience, but then in terms of optimizing it and optimizing the layout, optimizing the product merchandising, that all happens once we start getting the data, and the changes can be made like really quickly based on that.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, fashion brands have done a good job, I think, so far in embracing emerging technology and creating these modern day experiences for their consumer, not just like within the Obsess capabilities, but beyond. I'm sure you would agree, like Aloe, Ralph Lauren, Gucci, you mentioned earlier, Nike. In your opinion, which luxury brands have really done the most impressive and innovative things? Let's say maybe within the Obsess platform, but feel free to go beyond that. Where would you say is the North Star for luxury brands as it relates to embracing emerging technology?
Yeah, I would say in terms of the Obsess platform and our customers, the most innovative customers we have had, and this is not a brand, but a luxury retailer, My Teresa. And in terms of brands, like some of the beauty brands like Charlotte Tilbury have been the most kind of innovative in utilizing all of the new capabilities and seeing what works with their audience. And then also Ralph Lauren, because they have done a lot on our platform, and they have also embraced, many other kind of immersive 3D and gaming platforms as well. Yeah, and I think beyond kind of our brands that we work with, Gucci is definitely, Gucci and Nike are the brands to watch in terms of having dedicated teams for this whole, spatial 3D immersive area and having like really successful experiences on multiple platforms.
Now, will Obsess take its technology beyond the four corners of mobile or a laptop or a desktop or an iPad? Is it only a matter of time until that digital immersive 3D experience comes to life in, let's say, like even a physical brick and mortar store?
Yeah, actually, we have been having some recent conversations about, bringing the immersive experiences to life on touch screens in retail stores. So it's definitely a possibility. And then the other sort of medium or device for us is sort of going back to the headsets, which is where we had started, but it was too early at that time.
Yeah.
And now it's, obviously with Apple releasing Vision Pro this year was a huge kind of moment in this industry that we had been waiting for a long time. And we released several experiences on Apple Vision Pro. We also recently have released experiences on Oculus Meta Quest. And with those devices, when they gain more adoption, it will just be like, now you're like actually inside of these environments versus looking at it, on a screen in front of you. So it's a huge, makes a huge difference. Actually, today there's an article on Pop Sugar about some of the shopping experiences on Apple Vision Pro, including J. Crew and Alo Yoga and My Teresa that we have created. For whoever has access to the device, like checking them out is really kind of showing what the next generation of shopping and brand experiences can look like.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you mentioned Oculus back pre-pandemic. I remember the Oculus team coming to New York City and meeting with me for Karl Lagerfeld, who, was a client at the time, and we were going to build out a very interesting VR experience with Oculus for Karl. It never came to life, and I think that as you would admit, the Oculus was limiting in that it was heavy, it wasn't so fashionable, it wasn't very comfortable. Now, fast forward a few years and look at the Vision Pro. I think although the technology and the user experience is enhanced for sure, and maybe in certain ways a little bit more intuitive because it fits into the Apple's overall operating system, perhaps it still has its limitations with regards to physical design. So when will we, Neha, get to the point where the physical tools that enhance these immersive experiences are going to just be easier for the consumer, where it's going to become as simple as putting on a light framed eyeglass or a sunglass?
I mean, I can't say for sure or predict the future, but I would say it's at least 5 years away. And that mobile is going to be our primary kind of medium, at least for the next 10 years. But you have, seen the progress already for the last 5 years. To your point, though, pre-COVID, the Oculus headsets were much heavier and all of that. But the latest ones like Meta Quest 3, so light, much better kind of form factor. So it's already kind of improving. And there's always the classic debate about the chicken and egg of the content versus the device. Like, is it
Which
that
do you think is more important, the content or the device?
I believe it's the form factor of the device
Yeah.
because I think, like, to your point, when it looks like a pair of glasses that you can just easily put on, that's when, will be very easy. And that's when, like, anyone who wants to create content for this would be like inclined to do that as well. And so I think there's still use cases for these devices today, and we are exploring some very kind of interesting ones, especially in a more kind of design, like to actually do the design, to do merchandising, some more kind of internal collaborative use cases. And then also some in-store kind of, activation use cases for these devices while the, user adoption at home is still low. But I think there can be, some very, very interesting experiences that you can have talking about memorability that are so memorable through these devices more than, anything else.
Neha, you mentioned the magic of Taylor Swift earlier, and how she attracted, I think, more audience, more digital foot traffic to your platform than any other brand before. I think the experience between a mega star like Taylor Swift or Beyonce their fan base or their super fan base and brands is ripe for disruption. I know that you and I spoke about how committed we are as an agency in building these super fan verticals through the use of emerging technology. I'm curious, in your opinion, how will these immersive experiences totally transform the super fan experience with their star, with their, with their Taylor Swift?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it just helps scale Taylor Swift or scale any other
More.
star like so much more
Yeah.
versus, just seeing her on a screen or seeing her on a stage like really far, far away and in a concert. I think the power of immersive technology is that every fan can potentially feel like, she's in your living room and doing a concert for you and she only has to like record it once, right? And also just like getting close to everything for the super fan, like everything around the star, right? Like their lifestyle, what they're wearing, where they're going and all of that. Like if you can actually experience all of that much more immersively and feel like you're you're in her group and going around with her, I think that could be like super, super cool. So I think we have already seen, like some of the virtual concerts on Fortnite and so on that have attracted like massive
Yeah, Travis Scott
audiences.
is that
Yeah,
was like when the technology visually was
was
crude to a certain extent, right? Only 3,
yeah.
4 years ago, but yet compared to, the word you keep using, photorealistic. I mean, we weren't even there when Travis launched that.
Yeah. And so I think it's going to be, across all of these different activities that we do online, including entertainment, all of them, we are focused on shopping, but yeah, entertainment, travel, all of these will be massively enhanced as this technology becomes
Yeah.
more common.
I think it's going to stretch the relationship between the consumer and the the super fan specifically and the artist. Right now, it's very transactional. If I want to go to a concert, I buy the ticket, I go to the concert, I see my artist that I love, and then I go home. But I think the immersive experience with emerging technologies, including spatial computing, are going to provide brands with the opportunity to interact with both the artist and the super fan way in advance of the concert, right? Offering digital assets, digital merchandise. And then at the concert itself, the experience could become a lot more than just that of what happens in your seat. Like perhaps there are portals and new environments that are digitally accessible that then unlock access to physical merchandise or backstage events. And then again, after the concert, going back into the brand store. Is there anything like that that you think is imminent?
I love that vision. I feel like most of it should be possible from a technology standpoint today already. In terms of what is imminent, yeah, I feel like it is imminent. I think we're starting to see, again, in these gaming platforms, especially like Fortnite, we are starting to see the beginnings of that. And there was a lot of digital merch sold around all of the virtual concerts in these platforms. I haven't quite seen yet like a brand plus an artist
Yeah,
experience, but
I'm excited to see
you're
that.
you're the one who can create it.
I want to. I want to. Now, what about the fact that as a product person, you understand? I'm not discounting your work at all, but you understand that CMOs can really, really get a ton of value here, and it's not that complicated. But yet, it seems like there's a hurdle every day. There's an educational curve between you as an innovator, entrepreneur, as a inventor, where you need to teach CMOs how easy it is to get involved in these 3D immersive environments. So if you're going to like look at the CMOs all over the world and explain to them how simple it is to get involved, what would you tell them today?
Yeah, I would say like the reason to do it is to create the emotional connection with your customer digitally. That's not possible today. And in terms of getting started, it's really thinking about what you would want a virtual environment for your brand, or even just thinking about a particular campaign you have coming up or a particular product launch you have coming up, and getting started with that before then scaling it to across all of the product lines or across all of the seasons. And we have launched experiences in as little as 6 weeks from when we start working with the brand to launch. So it's all really, really easy.
Neha, what if the CFO was sitting next to that CMO and said, whoa, 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 I understand it's simple, but it's expensive and we're not going to see any return on our investment? How would you respond to that?
Yeah, I would say it's not expensive, but also, yeah, there is a return on investment because we can track all of the, traffic metrics. We can obviously customer engagement metrics, but then it is tied directly into sales. So we can actually track like how many people purchased when they visited the virtual store, ideally how many people purchased after they visited the virtual store as well. So all of it is things that you can get data back on. And we have
Man,
a lot of case studies that show, improvements and increase in conversion rate, increase in average order value.
amazing. So, last thing, I've fired away. We've gone pretty wide here with our discussion, but every single guest I have participates at the end in finishing a sentence that I begin with the name of our show, Some Future Day. So, Neha, are you game for this?
Sure.
All right, good, good. So, in some future day, digital shopping will be entirely different for the next generation
Because it will be completely about the brand experience and the story more than just the product itself.
Neha, congratulations with being such a visionary and so important, not just on the tech side, but on the retail side. It's incredible what you've built with Obsess. Thank you so much for joining me today. Is there anything else that you'd like to add or anything that you feel that's important that we didn't cover?
No, thank you so much for having me. And yeah, I would say, this space is evolving very rapidly. And because of the AI, and which we didn't really speak about, but, the GPU advancements, like everything is just going to get so much more beautiful and so much, faster. So yeah, so keep an eye out.
I know your time is very important, so thank you so much for joining me today. For ongoing insights surrounding these important topics, you can join the conversation on my social media channels, including Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Marc Beckman. And to sign up for my newsletter on Substack, you can find me at marcbeckman.substack.com. To make sure you don't miss a show, be sure to subscribe to Some Future Day across all major platforms worldwide, including YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. Special thanks to New York University for producing Some Future Day, and a big shout out to my producer extraordinaire, John Boomhofer, for being patient and always encouraging me to push through. Thanks a lot, John. Have a great day.